Hi, I'm Luke with the Gamer, and this is a beginner's guide to Dying Light 2. After years of waiting, Dying Light 2 is finally here to dropkick you into a zombie-infested city. Just like the original, Dying Light focuses on first-person combat and parkour against humans and zombies in an open world full of missions and areas to explore. Many fans of the first one, like myself, have been waiting years for the sequel, and with the hype surrounding it, this game is sure to bring in a whole new generation of athletic ass kickers. With all the zombies and scavengers running around, there is plenty of danger all across the city. And so here are some beginner's tips to get you started in Dying Light 2. Let's start with some good news for fans of the original game. The dropkick is back, and it's even more overpowered than it was before. In the first game, it allowed you to jump in the air and kick enemies so hard that they would ragdoll through the air. And in Dying Light 2, it is even more powerful. It's not only zombies that are vulnerable to this, but human enemies as well. You can pretty much launch human enemies with all the force of penalty kicking a baby. And when you consider the fact that there are a lot of missions and activities that take place on top of high-rise buildings, well, now you have a very easy way to dispatch enemies. Like most RPGs, at the start of Dying Light you're going to be pretty weak, so you'll quickly be introduced to a pickup called inhibitors. Once you gather enough of these, you can use it to upgrade the maximum size of your health or stamina bar. The honest truth is that combat in Dying Light 2 is pretty simple, and you've got a lot of tools at your disposal to help you fight off zombies and other humans. Because of this, I'd highly recommend you focus on upgrading your stamina more than your health. Another good reason to focus on upgrading your stamina first is for some of the side activities such as windmills. Some of these windmills are quite frankly not doable until you've upgraded your stamina bar to a certain level. Meanwhile, health is pretty easy to recover. The materials to craft medkits are pretty easy to find, and there's plenty of other consumables you can use to restore your health as well. So when you find those inhibitors, focus on upgrading your stamina bar first and it'll pay off in the long run. A few hours into the game, you'll be given a paraglider. This handy tool lets you travel the streets from up high and allows you to avoid a lot of the dangers on the ground. However, it is really important to note that this is not a parachute. While yes, the paraglider does stop fall damage and will allow you to comfortably glide from high rooftops back down to the ground, there is a brief activation period. So when you jump off a rooftop, don't leave it too late or you're going to hit the ground harder than those guys you've been drop kicking off the rooftops. The original Dying Light made it so that weapons would break fairly quickly, but then allowed you to repair them a limited amount of times. So this meant if you had a favourite, you could keep it for a bit longer. However, in Dying Light 2, weapons are, quite frankly, a lot more disposable. You can find them pretty much everywhere, and they're intended to be used until they completely break. There isn't a traditional repair system like in the first game, but there is one way you can restore weapons' durability when they're about to break. When you install a gear mod on a weapon, it will restore a portion of the durability. This is obviously done to keep the use of gear mods fair and not have you waste them. But right now it's the only way to really keep a hold of your favourite weapons. You can install more than one gear mod per weapon, so you can repair each weapon at least 2 times. Speaking of gear mods, this is the thing you're going to want to invest most of your currency and supplies into more than anything else in the game. Sure, that shiny katana from the vendor is looking very appealing, but it's a waste of money. You're better off investing in and upgrading your gear mods. Gear mods act as blueprints, so once you've bought them, you can craft them as many times as you want. However, as we've mentioned, weapons are pretty fragile and disposable in Dying Light 2, save for some of the rarest weapons. This makes gear mods a much smarter investment, as opposed to buying weapons from vendors. Once you've unlocked tools like the UV flashlight and the grappling hook, it's easy to start forgetting about your throwable items, which is a big mistake as they can be lifesavers. The grapple and the flashlight both take up the left trigger slot, which is also where you use other usable items. These can include molotovs, throwing knives, and decoys, and even grenades, which are all very helpful items. And these items can be lifesavers when you're fighting large groups of human enemies or being overwhelmed by zombies. Just like in the original game, you'll only see weak zombies shambling around in the streets during the day. Ones that aren't really as much of a threat to you. It's nighttime when the real monsters come out to play. However, just because nighttime is more difficult doesn't mean it's not rewarding. In fact, it's kind of better to play during nighttime as much as possible, because when the sky is dark, the amount of XP you'll get for combat and parkour doubles. That's not all though. Areas known as Dark Hollows become easier to explore at nighttime, and in them you can find rare gear, equipment and valuables that are really helpful. One of the key mechanics of Dying Light 2 is making choices. You'll be given several choices throughout the game to side with either the survivors or the peacekeepers. Beyond getting different missions and interactions, you'll be able to decide who to give certain structures to. These choices change the map up a bit and give the player different rewards. Although the game seems to present these rewards as equal, honestly I think the survivors give out better rewards. Peacekeeper upgrades focus on traps like electric fences and mounted cannons, but don't give you combat XP, while survivors build structures for you to parkour from, so when you're making these decisions just bear in mind the survivor stuff is probably better. As you run across the world of Dying Light 2, you're going to run into a lot of different types of character gear. Although initially you might want to think I need to get the best possible gear to optimize my build, it's not really worth worrying too much about, because pretty much all gear in Dying Light 2 is randomized. That means you'll find gear that looks the same but will have completely different stats. The only gear that isn't randomized are the items you receive for completing quests, but these are normally weapons and not gear. And yes, while gear does give different class bonuses such as healing faster or hitting harder with certain weapons, the increase is minimal even for the game's rarest gear. If you're very into two-handed weapons, then you might as well go for a certain type of gear, but the difference is so minor that it's not really worth obsessing about too much. This guide's original writer, George Foster, took an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure out that the Craftmaster lets you upgrade some of your equipment such as the Paraglider and the grappling hook. If you're looking to prioritise, then I'd recommend going with the Paraglider, as it allows you to go faster and rise higher in the air off the back of vents, which are both big advantages. But you're going to need military tech to upgrade most of your gear, which requires finding the military drops across the map. So that is the beginner's guide to Dying Light 2. I hope this has helped you out, and check out thegamer.com for more.